today's story, we are talking about a brother who admitted to being a stone cold killer in his brother's murder trial. Apparently there is no love lost between these brothers. So let's read a little bit about this brotherly relationship. Admitted murderer Jake Wagner is a con artist and liar who was so afraid of the possibility of being put to death for murdering 8 members of the Roden and Gilley families that he sold prosecutors a story about his older brother tagging along with him and his dad the night of the murders to secure a plea deal bargain, according to defense attorneys. So, facing the charges for 8 murders, he has sold out his own brother, at least according to the defense attorneys. Not because his brother necessarily was involved, but because he's trying to get out of the death penalty. Yeah, that could be a thing. Jake's testimony wrapped up at the close of the day after hours of questioning by one of the attorneys representing Jake's older brother, George Wagner IV. George is accused of conspiring with Jake, his mother, and his father, whole family affair, to murder Hannah Mae Rodan and 7 of her family members to prevent the daughter Jake and Hannah Mae shared from allegedly being sexually assaulted. So according to the confessed murderer, they went and killed 8 members in a mother-daughter, and apologize, in a brother, father-son conspiracy to kill 8 members to prevent child misdeeds. Here is apparently an excerpt from the trial. "You're a stone cold killer?" Parker asked. "Yes," Jake responded with a smile. "And you're a liar?" "I was." It's going great. In prior testimony, Jake Wagner claimed to confess to the murders, first to his attorneys in January 2020, because he received an answer from God after his grandmother pled guilty a month earlier to lying about notarizing and signing custody documents relating to the case. Wow, this family's involved in all kinds of shenanigans. Prosecutors had sought to describe Jake Wagner as a religious man who pled guilty to the crimes because he was repentant. However, Parker forced Jake to admit that he didn't want to die and doesn't consider going to the prison for the rest of his life punishment. I don't know, it feels like a punishment to me, but that's just me, I guess. Jake also admitted that he had problems with his memory when Parker asked him whether he had bragged about selling a chicken to a woman at an event called Swap Days where people buy and sell items. Jake smiled and responded, "I've told that story so many times, I don't know if it's actually happened." We're unclear about the chicken sales. When Parker followed up with questions about his memory, Jake said he had trouble remembering things and gets confused sometimes. Sometimes I remember things in pieces that didn't happen that way. Okay. Jake Wagner said he suffered 2 head injuries when he's younger. In one incident, a 7-foot-long steel pole fell over and hit him in the temple. I mean, that would create some sort of trauma, I would imagine. He said he made his way back to the house and couldn't stop vomiting for a week, couldn't eat, and have trouble walking. He said his mother called it a heat stroke, while his father believed it to be a concussion. He testified his parents did not seek medical treatment for him. In another instance, Jake said he was trying to lasso a tire while riding on the back of a 4-wheeler. He was hit in the forehead and blood started gushing from his forehead. His father, he said, often stitched him up with duct tape and electrical tape, but in this instance took him to the hospital. How nice. Jake said that Billy told the doctor, "If you rip that stitch off again, I'll break your neck." Parker had asked Jake Wagner a number of questions about the details he provided prosecutors in a proffer, which is like an offer of proof. It's what you would testify to. This is usually done at some sort of plea negotiation conference. So as a plea negotiation, you say what you would testify to. It's a protected meaning, but there are some very tightly constrained rules around it. But so this is what he said that he would testify to if he got a plea deal. So they're talking about what he said to the prosecutors during this conference. Parker insinuated that the special prosecutors had fed details to Jake that he later simply confirmed, which is always a concern, both police and prosecutors, that maybe they give you details and then you confirm those details. That can happen. So something to ask questions about. Jake also told Parker that he's referred to as Pastor Jake and Pastor Wagner in the Franklin County Jail where he's been housed. Well, he can continue teaching people the word, I suppose. Not sure what word that is, but yeah. Earlier in the day, Parker began questioning of Jake Wagner by simply asking him about the life of crime Jake had lived with his parents, which included burning buildings on their property to collect insurance money, stealing trailers full of goods, breaking into vending machines, shoplifting, stealing vehicles, and picking locks. Jake said with pride, "I was very good," when asked about picking locks, which he learned to do at age 10 or 11. He still seemed comfortable providing the details of his family's nefarious activities on the witness stand. Jake also said his mother had a successful dog breeding business selling doodle dogs. But as the breed became more popular, it became more difficult to keep up with demand, so he said the family would go to puppy mills and sell the dogs as purebred when they were not. Jake also detailed how his father taught him survival skills. Jake said Billy taught him how to steal without being detected, but also taught him how to eat substances in the wild, such as roots and mushrooms, to survive. Billy Wagner was preparing for the apocalypse by stashing food and water in a bread truck he had buried in the ground to prepare for the end of the world in 2000 and 2012. He's got a bread truck in the ground as his bunker or bread storage thing. Okay. I'm getting the sense that maybe not all is right with his family. Parker ended the cross-examination by getting Jake to admit, again, that he and his plumber planned the murders. Jake said George was part of the original plan, but that George didn't want the murders to happen. "So he was along at the last second to protect you?" Parker asked. "Correct," Jake responded. On redirect, the prosecutors asked Jake a series of questions about family crimes and whether George was aware of them. Jake said George knew about the puppy scam, theft of cattle, that will definitely get you shot in Texas, and stealing trailers full of goods. They also asked Jake whether he was able to tell the truth when speaking to prosecutors before his guilty plea. He agreed that he was asked to tell them the truth. He also agreed that the prosecutors had a theory that he and George were the shooters of the night of the murder. However, Jake said he told prosecutors that George never fired a shot. When questioned about his memory, Jake said he can remember events from his childhood. He also said that he remembers George going to Union Hill Road with him on the night of the murders and assist him in building a false bed for the pickup truck that they drove that night, with the false bed providing cover. On recross, Parker aggressively asked Jake again, "You're a stone-cold killer?" Jake responded, "I was." Parker said, "So you sold your testimony to the state of Ohio to save your life?" Jake responded, "I provided truthful testimony." Parker pushed, "You sold that. You didn't throw yourself on the mercy of the court with death specifications." Jake responded, "That's one way of looking at it." Wow, I feel the brotherly love. After a brief follow-up, the judge asked whether there were any more questions. Parker responded, "Take him away, judge, no further questions." George Wagner, the force attorneys, then asked the court to remove death specifications, since Jake Wagner provided testimony in accordance with plea, which includes the elimination of the death penalty for Jake and family members who chose to go to trial. But prosecutors have said that Jake has to testify to the satisfaction of the state for that to happen. It's not exactly clear what that means. The prosecutors responded they'd like to discuss the issue with George's attorneys, but not in a public forum. George Wagner IV and family members are accused of planning and carrying out the murders of Hannah Mary Rodan, the parents, and other family members. Testimony in the trial resumes on Monday. Angela Wagner has pled guilty in September 2021 in exchange for a 30-year prison sentence. Billy Wagner's trial might start next year. Thus, that brings us to the end of this story about the Wagner family and their involvement in the murders of the Parker family. The entire family murders together. Is that part of the expression? A family that murders together stays together? I don't know. I don't remember that one, but maybe, because it seems like brother, father, mother, grandmother, et al. Were involved in this plot to varying degrees of what is not exactly clear. because there is quite a bit of incentive potentially for this guy to potentially lie. So, but it seems like something was going on. So, yeah. So, for those of you who are interested, that's a little bit about the Wagner family and their murder trial for the 8 people. And that, for a moment, brings us to the end of discussion of this story.